Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint's Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. You've heard their point, now listen to the counterpoint.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. We are coming to you on February 24th, 2021. We've gotten several weeks of Biden now, so lots to talk about. But before I get into anything, let's introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have our Screaming Eagle of Freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. And
adjusting my volume here.
Okay. For our Screaming Eagle is adjusting his scream. There we go. In our upper right-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. Okay, and my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So this show is going to be a little different than some of the past ones. It's going to be sort of a postmortem, I guess, on Trump. He's been a rather eventful character in our country's history, and so it seems like he's worth discussing most of the show on. So we're going to spend the show looking into the impact he's had on the country, for better or worse. And as we go into that, I guess there's a lot of good things and bad things, Tim, but we'll try and share a few images and discuss a few points. Probably one show isn't enough, but we're going to talk about so anyways, let's hop right into it. So one thing that we can't help but notice is that Trump was definitely a tale of two impeachments. That's certainly one thing that's going to go down on his record. I think it's going to be hard to think of some of the other, I guess, crazy things that have also happened too. But two impeachments, kind of crazy. It brings into TDS and all the other stuff. We just wrapped up, and we've been kind of waiting on doing a whole Trump thing just to find out how that wrapped up. So now that it's wrapped up, what do you guys think? The president of two impeachments, not two terms, but two impeachments.
Well, I do believe that Donald Trump was probably the most hunted and most investigated and president that we have ever had. I think Trump derangement syndrome is a real phenomenon. Now, Donald Trump have done a lot of things to drive a lot of people crazy. I voted for him the second time, not the first. I still believe he deserved a second term, but his some of his actions were unbelievable, quite frankly. But the impeachments, for instance, the first impeachment was totally bogus, as far as I can tell. There was nothing in that telephone call that Donald Trump made that was impeachable. And if it was impeachable, then they should be starting an impeachment procedure against Joe Biden, who was talking about doing the very same thing in Ukraine, and it was even worse and more egregious than anything that Donald Trump would have done in Ukraine. So the first impeachment thing was bogus. The second one, I can see why he was impeached, even though the process by which they did it, I think, stink, quite frankly, because they didn't give Trump any time to defend himself or anything like that. It was what they call a snap impeachment. I don't think an impeachment of an American president should ever be a snap impeachment. But I understand why they impeached him. He was associated in some way. However deeply you want to put that, it's debatable, but he was associated with the riots that occurred on January 6th. But the Senate, of course, acquitted him. The House managers didn't make their case. They were totally deranged to me in terms of the case that they made. They even presented doctored evidence in the Senate. This is how horrible this thing was. Doctored evidence in a Senate trial of an American president. This is unbelievable. So, yes, I think it is true what you have said, Jason, that there's good of Trump and there's bad of Trump. I just believed he deserved a second term. Obviously, he's not going to get that now. But I guess it is not to be. I think overall, though, how will history judge him? He was an impactful president, I think. Mostly good, but there was some bad stuff too. But I think overall, I think history will judge him as impactful in a positive light, notwithstanding his association with the riots on January 6th.
Well, that's pretty good. I hate to follow that because I really don't have a lot to add. I think the result of the impeachments speaks for itself or for themselves. You know, it's easier to start the impeachment process than to finish it up, obviously.
Yes.
You know, at least if you're a Democrat. But
yes.
Yeah, I don't know. They like to impeach people on things they say. It's kind of funny. Never see anybody impeached for the number of people who end up dead under their actions. In foreign countries, especially, mainly. You can kill tens of thousands of people and no issue whatsoever. That's okay. That's fine. But you talk to somebody in a speech, or you talk to somebody on the phone about this or that underhanded thing or whatever you want to make of it, and holy Toledo, the gloves come off and they're after you. So I'm not impressed with the people behind the impeachment because it's just partisanship to me. And this hatred of this guy that is pretty amazing. So he deserves some hatred, in my opinion. But my goodness, can you just can you stop the hypocrisy a little bit? Like you pointed out, Leon, regarding Biden. But anyway. That's all I have to offer. Not much, but that was a good one, Leon.
Well, I wanted to jump in on what Leon was talking about as well. So the first impeachment, absolutely, from the day that Trump came into office, we were, essentially face to face with TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. Literally Russia. And there was never any evidence brought up of the whole Russia thing, but that was what led a lot of the investigation until finally I guess they got a hold of the one of his staff had leaked something about a phone call he had with a Ukrainian president. But the crazy thing about the whole Ukrainian president thing is that what Trump was trying to do was to try to get the Ukrainian president to reopen an investigation into Biden's, dealings in the Ukraine, which is just insane. I mean, you just can't write this stuff. Literally, when Biden was vice president, he was over in the Ukraine and he was dealing with this. I think his name is Poroshenko. I think the president's or prime minister's name is over there. But
yes.
But I guess he had assigned a prosecutor, that president, and the prosecutor was looking into the company that Biden's son was sitting on. And so Biden literally admitted this in a speech. And unfortunately, I didn't, get a copy of that video for this show, which is unfortunate. But Biden literally admits to an audience in a speaking forum that he was holding out foreign aid or, something related to foreign aid, I think it was, that, if they did not essentially pull the prosecutor that was looking into Biden's company or Biden's son's company, then, he was going to make sure that they didn't get the money that was supposed to be.
The prosecutor had to be fired, is what he said. It had to be fired. The prosecutor had to be fired.
Yeah, and so he apparently, he said, the president said, well, hey, this isn't your decision. It says, hey, I'm speaking for Obama, and if you don't like it, I can't remember the exact words, but whatever. And he says, well, son of a gun, he calls me back and he's fired the prosecutor, so that they can get their aid. And, it's just, it's beyond the pale that is literally what the spark of this whole thing was. And Trump was essentially trying to reopen that. and the Democrats accused him of essentially, meddling with foreign governments and
Yes.
And foreign aid for his own benefit. When that's exactly
what Joe Biden was doing for his own benefit and his son's benefit.
He was just trying to look into that. So it's just beyond the pale. But please go look into that video. It's out there. You can easily find it. It's on YouTube. And it's only about a minute or so clip. But as far as TDS goes, I'm going to share an image with you guys just to give you a sense of an image that just captures the whole TDS of the last 4 years. So this is an image, in case you don't recognize the image.
Yes.
Well, Leon, Tim, I'll let either of you want to jump in. What is Nancy Pelosi doing in that picture?
I think she's tearing up. Let me see if I get it. I know Leon's got this down, but I think she's tearing up the State of the Union address. Is that what that is?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think there's got to be a first in the history of the country that literally.
As far as we know, it is. There have never been anything like this.
Literally, the president gives the State of the Union address, and she tears it up immediately after.
That's. I gotta hand it to her. That's gutsy, right behind her. Right next to the vice president. Oh my God!
Exactly.
Yeah. So to me,
that's a good picture.
Yeah. It just it's this sort of wild look in her eyes as she's tearing this. Talking about. It's actually state property too. That
exactly. I mean, technically, she could have been prosecuted for what she did there. She could have been prosecuted, but of course, she's a Democrat. They're not going to prosecute a Democrat for something like this. But she could have been prosecuted because she was destroying state a federal document.
Well, don't they all get a copy so they can follow along on a speech?
Yeah, well, whenever a president comes up to give the State of the Union address, he hands a copy to the vice president, who is president of the Senate, and he hands a copy to the Speaker of the House, who in this case would have been Nancy Pelosi. And after he makes his speech, and when he's done, we have Nancy Pelosi destroying this thing. But that's government property. She's destroying.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, when Biden gives his State of the Union speech, they're going to have to give a copy to everyone in the audience so that they know what he was supposed to say, what he was supposed to have said. Because he's going to be just babbling all kinds of nonsense halfway through through the first sentence, halfway through the first sentence. So everybody's going to need one of those copies, and they're going to have to put it out on the internet, so people watching the live feed from CNN or whoever, they're going to have a copy too for the same reason.
So they're going to read along and make sense of babbling Biden.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny. He was not certainly the most libertarian friendly candidate. He was responsible for actually reducing a lot of regulations. So that I think libertarians liked him for. And this was something that it says it's from the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs. And so by the 2018, this is where this information is taken from, I guess. And it shows the amount of deregulatory actions he took compared to regulatory actions. And so you can completely see here that they're completely outweighed. Like, for instance, transportation. Apparently, he deregulated 23 items and he added one regulatory item. And that was at a cost savings of about $1 billion to the country, I think. So, there were things he did that, I think some libertarians very much liked about him. But on the other hand, he also did an awful lot of things that were sort of executive orders, just sort of forcing things down people's throats, and adding trillions of dollars in the end to the budget as well when he finally left office.
The national debt, yes, that's correct. Yes,
the national debt, something like that.
I have to just make sure the audience knows that that's millions of dollars. So that is $1,237 million in the transportation line, which is equivalent to over $1.2 billion, just so everyone knows. A billion is 1,000 million, and a trillion is 1,000 billion.
Billion.
Yeah, I couldn't help but notice this is all might have seemed impressive in 2018. Today it's chump change when we're talking about trillions of dollars. Now everything is trillions and not billions.
Well, this so-called COVID package that they're trying to pass right now is $1.9 trillion is what they're talking about. Could you imagine that?
Yeah. Well, so back to Trump though, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know, because I started going off on when Biden gives the State of the Union. I mean, it's like how quick we can't even stay focused today. Crying out loud.
I know.
Well, one of the things too that I wanted to bring up as well is the one of the things we can't help but notice is that he sort of ripped the mask off the media. I think people on the conservative side and probably the libertarian side too have felt like the media has definitely, been shading things quite a bit. I think the libertarians might feel that way about both conservative and the left media, but certainly conservatives feel that way about the left media, and justly so. I mean, the things, and one of the key items I wanted to bring your attention to here is this cover of Time magazine that came out while he was president. So one of the things Donald Trump was sort of famous for was his big push against immigrants. And of course, he made the statement that said, they're not sending their best. He said they're sending rapists, murderers, and I'm sure there's some good ones too, or something to that effect. Okay, so clearly, he could have been his own worst enemy in some of his rhetoric. However, this particular magazine, Time magazine, did a cover, and it says "Welcome to the USA," and it shows a little girl, and welcome to America. It shows a little girl, and she's crying, looking up at Trump, as though she's been separated from her parents. And they brought in kids in cages, which maybe we'll have time enough to get into that too. But the crazy thing was, this image was a completely doctored image. This girl was actually somebody who was reunited with her parents at the border. Yes. The Border Patrol actually found her and got her reunited to her parents. And she was completely not the case that this particular story, was trying to make up with this cover. And yet it was completely doctored by Time to make it look that way. And the defense of the sort of left media was, well, it's the story it's trying to tell is true, even if the specifics really aren't, and it's just been a year of 4, 5, 6 years of fake news. I mean, so Trump coining that term fake news, I think, really did help to shine a light on some of the craziness of how we've got to where we've got to. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it's a true image, and she had a sliver in her finger, and moments later, Trump took a pair of tweezers, pulled that sliver out, and that little girl was just as happy as a clam. Prove me wrong.
That's coming next, yes. Jason, you just committed the very error that we are accusing the media of committing. You just said that Trump had a push against immigrants. Trump had no push against immigrants. He had a push against illegal immigrants.
Okay, yeah, I acknowledge it was. That's true. He did say it was against illegal immigration.
He had no problem with immigrants. His mother was an immigrant, as a matter of fact. Okay, and his wife is an immigrant also. He have no push against illegal immigration. It's the illegal immigration he have a problem with, and I have a problem with, which I do. I have a big problem with it because I took 17 years, whatever it is, I think 17, 16 years, whatever it was, for me to become an American citizen. And I don't think people should be just walking across the border and all of a sudden, they have rights. No. I can't understand that. Maybe that's my conservative part of me. But anyway, getting back to the point about Donald Trump and this particular image. There is a very big problem here about this separation issue going on at the border. Every day, right here, and this gets back to our Trump derangement syndrome. Every day, right here in the United States, hundreds, if not thousands of children are separated from their families. You know why? Because there's abuse in the home. So these child protective services all over the country, in every state in the union, will separate a child from their parents. That happens every day in this country. But you know, there's a special dispensation for illegal immigrants. They show up at the border. They know something is going to happen at the border. And for whatever reason, good or bad, child and parent are separated. And all of a sudden, we have an outrage. We have a cry. Oh my goodness gracious. It is so mad and it's so horrible that here is America, the beacon of democracy and of freedom and everything. They are separating these poor children from their families. But what happened to those kids? What happened to those kids who are separated every day to American citizens? What about those kids? Shouldn't we just be equally as outraged, if not more outraged about that? If we're so outraged about what's happening at the border? This is the kind of ridiculous thing, the kind of Trump derangement syndrome that is dominating our news. And look at this image you have in front of us here. And you rightly said, it's been doctored. It's been absolutely doctored to make a point.
Almost like the doctoring of the evidence that you mentioned at the impeachment trial as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
Essentially, the justification is, well, it's true we did alter the evidence, but it still tells the story we think is true.
You see, and that is the problem. That's exactly the problem. They want to tell a story. And whatever evidence they have to use, they have to massage it, manipulate it, doctor it. As long as it tells the story, it's okay. The ends justify the means. This is Marxist ideology.
Well, I think Cuomo's got competition for that Emmy there with the performance that Leon gave about the people crying about the children being separated. That was pretty good.
Well, let me jump into foreign relations a little bit, because that was certainly an area. It's certainly one area libertarians kind of hate, is the area where he was constantly talking about protectionism and trade. However, in the area of sort of war and foreign policy, he was actually a little less aggressive than a lot of presidents that we've had in the past. And in that sense, I think he should be applauded a little bit, in the sense that he actually is the first president to step on North Korean soil during his presidency, which is quite an accomplishment. Even if they haven't made a huge amount of progress, consider that over decades of status quo, Bush, Obama, whoever, it's literally allowed this problem to become a problem in North Korea over all that time. So, to sit there and the way people were so afraid about Trump, and his foreign policy, it's almost, how could you have done worse with North Korea? I mean, literally, this country has gotten to the point where it is, a powder keg with nuclear weapons, and they were launching those things and testing them before Trump came into office. So this is, something that I think Trump should be applauded for going outside the box a little bit on this. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I agree. That was a good move, and that's what a diplomatic maneuver should look like, at least. Where you're trying to come to some agreement between you and countries you are not strict allies with, and certainly North Korea is one of those. So. Yeah, good move. Didn't have any issue with that. I thought that was a good move. How about you, Leon?
Well, overall, I think Trump, where foreign policy is concerned, I can't knock him for it. I mean, I think he did some good things where foreign policy is concerned. I mean, some of the deals he got done in the Middle East, I think, was quite an accomplishment, and I think history remember him for that. I have a big problem with this renegotiation of the NAFTA deal, which I think was a bunch of damn nonsense. I have a big problem with it. I don't think it did anything good, anything positive for the United States in renegotiating that deal, but it was done. And, I mean, Trump campaign was all during the election was talking about it wonders. I see no wonders in it, quite frankly. I don't. But overall, I think foreign policy, he will probably be seen favorably by history.
You don't think it was the best deal ever? the biggest, the best, most beautiful deal ever?
It's great. It's really great.
I think what we'll probably pass on Knucklehead Noise Patrol this time, because we've got a few more things I'd like to hopefully get through this in this one program.
Okay.
So, as far as things go, so there's okay, well, that was the Knucklehead Noise Patrol. We'll say that for another time. But so there was a few other issues I wanted to touch upon briefly, and so one of them is just his rhetoric and how he could be his own worst enemy at times. I mean, so in some ways he said things that had some ring of truth to them, but he also said it in sometimes the ways that could most, I guess, inflame people. I mean, so you had the issues with, anchor babies, which, there's a little bit of truth to that, but the idea of, what was it? What we said earlier, that, essentially they're sending murderers, rapists, and I'm sure there's some good ones too. I mean, all I had to do is just sort of flip that statement around and said, yeah, there's some good people coming, but hey, look, they are sending, we're getting some murders and rapists. We got to make sure we don't get those ones, right? I mean, just the way he phrased the stuff, just phrase it a little better and maybe avoid a lot of those problems, but somehow, I don't know. That
whole statement that Donald Trump made, I have heard that being repeated so many times, that Trump said that Mexicans are rapists, okay? But when you look at the full context of his statement, okay, I don't have a disagreement with the full context of the statement. The problem is that the way Donald Trump says things, okay? And you're right. You could call it, he has put his foot in his mouth a little too often, or he just doesn't have proper phraseology of certain things. You could say all of those things, and I will have to agree. But if you look at the full context, he said up front, Mexico is not sending us their best. Okay? What I don't see nothing wrong with that statement, because they are not. The people who are coming here, I mean, we're having a lot of drug dealers at the thing. We have a lot of people doing all sorts of criminal things, sex trafficking and all sorts of things going on. We know that is happening. But Donald Trump couldn't find a pleasant way. I'm sure Obama could have said this thing and could have said it a lot better than Donald Trump ever did. Okay? And could have said the exact same thing. But he could have said it a little better.
I think to put the emphasis on the idea, though, that most people, I think most people in the history of migration in the world come to places because they want to work, and I don't know, but darn it, we are running out of time.
Well, I don't mind people quickly. I don't mind people trying to find work, Jason, but there must be a legal process by which we do it. People cannot show up at our borders and say we have rights. No, but anyway, that's my last word.
Well, that's about the end of our show. I'm sure we'll be talking about Trump some more on future shows, but certainly a complicated president, and there's so much more we could have gotten into. But
yes.
Sadly, as his term had to come to an end, so does our show. A little more shortly than we would have liked. A little more time, as I'm sure Trump would have. So there we are. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Knuckleheads of Liberty. You can catch us on Facebook and libertariancounterpoint.com, and we'll see you at the next one.
Yep.
Goodbye.